In August 1975, a storm dropped more rain in 24 hours than most cities see in 5 years. By the time it was over, somewhere between 170,000 and 230,000 people were dead. That's more than the Titanic, Chernobyl, and 9/11. Combined, more than twice over. And yet, almost no one outside China has ever heard of it. This is the story of the Banqiao Dam. To understand what happened, we need to go back to the 1950s. China had just come through decades of war and famine. The Huai River, which cuts through Henan province, had a brutal history of flooding. It had killed millions of people over the centuries. So, under Mao Zedong's government, engineers launched an ambitious plan: build a network of dams to tame the river once and for all. Banqiao Dam was the crown jewel. Completed in 1952, it was designed to hold back catastrophic floods and generate hydroelectric power for the region. Soviet engineers helped design it, using standards built for much gentler climates. It earned a nickname, the Iron Dam. Officials said it was unbreakable. They were wrong. Almost immediately after construction, engineers found cracks in the dam. It was reinforced and repaired. But there was a deeper problem, one that had nothing to do with concrete. The dam had been designed to survive what engineers called a 1-in-1,000-year flood. That sounds like an extreme, almost impossible standard. But it wasn't extreme enough, not even close. Meanwhile, political pressure changed how the dam was managed. During the Great Leap Forward, the engineer who had pushed for a higher number of floodgates, sluice gates that let excess water out safely, was criticized for being overly cautious. Some of his proposed gates were never built. The dam that stood in 1975 had fewer ways to release pressure than its original design called for. It was a warning nobody listened to. In early August 1975, Typhoon Nina made landfall in China. Storms like this usually weaken quickly once they hit land. This one didn't. Nina collided with a cold air front and essentially got trapped over Henan province. Instead of moving on, it sat there and dumped rain for days. The numbers are almost hard to process. Over a single 24-hour period, more than 1,000 millimeters of rain fell on the region. Some areas saw over 1,600 millimeters in total. To put that in perspective, that's close to double the average annual rainfall for the entire area, falling in about a day. Rivers that were designed to handle seasonal floods were suddenly facing something engineers hadn't planned for. Reservoirs across the region filled to their limits and kept rising. At Banqiao, water was rising faster than it could be released. Here's where the disaster compounds. This wasn't just a natural disaster. It was a communications failure. As the storm intensified, telegraph and telephone lines were knocked out across the region. Local officials tried to send warnings about the rising water, but many of those messages never got through. Some reports say a single telegram warning of catastrophic danger did get sent, but by the time it might have reached anyone, it was already too late. There was no mass warning system, no sirens, no evacuation order that reached most of the villages downstream. Hundreds of thousands of people went to sleep that night with no idea what was coming. Just after midnight on August 8, 1975, water began overtopping the Banqiao Dam. Within hours, the dam failed completely. Survivors and witnesses described it not as a flood, but as a wall of water. Some accounts describe it as 6 meters high, moving at incredible speed, tearing through the valley below. It's been compared to a tsunami hitting inland, except there was no ocean anywhere near it. Entire villages were erased in minutes. People were swept away in their sleep. Some described hearing a roar like thunder moments before the water hit. Barely enough warning to climb onto a roof, if that. And Banqiao wasn't alone. The failure triggered a chain reaction. Over 60 other dams and reservoirs in the region failed in the hours and days that followed, unable to handle the same storm or the surge of water moving downstream. An area roughly the size of a small country was submerged. The immediate flood killed an estimated 26,000 people. But that was only the beginning. With roads destroyed and entire regions underwater, relief efforts were nearly impossible. An estimated 11 million people were affected, displaced from their homes, cut off from food and clean water. In the weeks that followed, disease and famine spread through the survivor camps. Epidemics of dysentery and other illnesses tore through populations already weakened by exposure and hunger. When you add the deaths from the flood itself to the deaths from starvation and disease afterward, estimates range from 170,000 to as high as 230,000 people.
Some estimates go even higher. Because of how the disaster was handled afterward, we may never know the true number. For almost 2 decades, most of the world had no idea this happened. Even today, it's considered one of the least known catastrophes of the 20th century, despite its staggering death toll. It doesn't appear in most history textbooks. It's rarely mentioned alongside other major disasters of the era. Compare that to how much the world knows about Chernobyl, which happened just over a decade later, and killed a tiny fraction of the people Banqiao did.